My name's Rosemary Baker-Monaghan. I've actually been in public office continuously since 1991. I started in a position that was appointed, the Planning Commission here in Seaside, in 1991, and then 4 years later ran for office for the City Council, and then 4 years later ran for office for mayor. So I served a little over 4 years on the Planning Commission, 4 years on the City Council, and then 4 years as mayor. While I was mayor, there were issues around the community college and whether we as a community in Seaside felt we were adequately being represented. So I also became appointed to a vacant position on the community college board while I was mayor in October, and then ran for the seat in May. So there was a period of about 3 years where I was elected both as Mayor of Seaside and as a college board member for Clatsop Community College. And I've been re-elected at Clatsop Community College ever since, and I actually just filed last week for a third term on the Community College Board. There was a series of 5 things that Larry had asked me to kind of talk about. One of them is scope of the job, and each of those jobs were progressively more complicated. You start on the Planning Commission, it's all about zoning and land use and variances, which were interesting to me because I have a background in forestry and land use, so that's kind of how I started my political career. Then that kind of grows into you're seeing things that you decide move on up to the City Council, and so you think that you want to have more input into how that is being conducted and finished up, so you run for office on the City Council, and then I'm still not sure how I ended up running for mayor. My mother's comment was, what were you thinking? But each job, it really is what you put into it. There is nobody hands you a book when you become mayor and says, here's what you should do. It is what you make it, and the amount of time you put into it is kind of actually an equal proportion to the rewards you receive intrinsically for serving. And when we get to questions, I can talk more specifically about each of those positions if you want. What was my experience? It was really, truly, it's been a roller coaster ride. Particularly when you're mayor, you'll have a really, really wonderful, good, productive day, and then the next day the other shoe drops. And you kind of recover from that, and then you have another really productive, good day, and then another shoe drops. I was actually mayor from '99 to 2003, and during that time period, we had the riots over spring break, the riot, singular, over spring break. I was mayor during Columbine, and there was, of course, some community reaction to that tragedy. And then I was also mayor during 9/11. So there were a lot of interesting challenges as a community during those 4 years. We also accomplished a great deal. It felt like we'd accomplished a lot in 4 years, but really the 8 years prior to that was where you built all the prep work, you did the community focus groups, you did the visiting sessions, and then moved forward the 4 years in implementing some of the things that you wanted to see happen and the community wanted to see happen. One of the things I've noticed with people who run for office, a lot of times people will run for office on a single issue that they're very passionate about, and when they are elected or appointed to that position, then it's a really fast learning curve for them about everything else that pertains to that job because they've been so focused on their one issue. And sometimes that's good because you'll get a person who really embraces that and does really well in it, and sometimes you'll end up with someone in that position who can't get past the one issue, and they don't end up actually being a good elected official in my perspective. It comes down to how you embrace. You have a little bit of power. Everyone has personal power, but when you're elected to an office, you have power that comes with responsibility because you're there for everyone you're representing. And how you embrace that power really is going to say a lot about how you end up doing in the job and how effective you are. And if you embrace that power for serving more people and beyond your own personal agenda, then you're going to do a good job. But if you embrace it just from your own point of view, then you're not going to do a good job. And you see people when they start on a board, you can watch for the first 6 months, and you can kind of see how they end up embracing that power and that opportunity that you have to really do something. I count myself really, really lucky that I was blessed to be the mayor of Seaside. Not everyone gets to do that, and it's an honor to do that, and you have to really cherish that and make good decisions. I always asked myself when I was making a decision whether 20 years from now, would I look back on that decision, and given the information that I had at the time, will I still believe that was the right decision to make? I always ask myself, are you making this decision because it's what you think is the right thing to do, or because if you make this decision one way, you have a better chance of getting reelected? That's totally the wrong reason to make a decision.
In terms of running for office, what should somebody who is going to wants to run for college board or for Seaside City Council be expected to do? What sorts of things did you have to do?
Well, actually the most complex and difficult race I ran was a race I lost. I ran for state representative in 2003. I was only in the primary. I was running against Debbie Boone, who's doing a wonderful job, by the way. But I was in the primary for 7 weeks, raised and spent $7,000. It was a 4-county race for that position. So I was running in 3 counties who'd never heard of me, and 1 county where Seaside had heard of me, but not really Astoria and Arch Cape. So in the course of that time, raising the money, being interviewed, that's a different kind of level than just a community race, but raising money is a big deal, and you end up going to special interest groups for money who have questionnaires for you to fill out. You fill out the questionnaires, then you're interviewed by them, and the whole kind of dance that you're doing is, how do I say to you that I empathize with your positions and I will hear you out without already promising things that you can't really promise until you've been in the position and heard what your constituents want to have happen. So how do you have them give you money but not already promise everything that you shouldn't be promising yet?
But for schools,
so that's kind of different. Yeah. You're designing and doing your own mailings. I always got the mailing labels from the county to use. You're raising money for ads in the paper. You're going and giving speeches at various locations, depending on the office that you're running for. You'll go to candidates forums where you'll have to give a speech, and then there'll be questions and answers. A lot of times it's you kind of feel like you're out on a limb by yourself, you and your 6 friends who are doing mailing labels with you until 2 o'clock in the morning. But that's kind of where you're at when you're making the decision in the office too. If any of your decisions, it's kind of you're on a limb by yourself trying to decide what's the best thing to do sometimes. So, did that answer the question? The campaigning part, going door to door, not my favorite thing, but they say it's one of the most effective ways to campaign, is to go door to door and meet people. I really dislike campaign signs, but you got to do it. Seaside has a stricter sign ordinance than the rest of the county. You can only put yours up 30 days out. If you put your sign in the wrong place, they'll go pick it up and throw it away. So you wasted that money. Those personal contact, going door to door, they say is the most effective way. Signs are kind of a psychological game that you play. Does your competition have more signs out than you do? I'm not really wildly crazy about campaign signs, and they stay up way too long, and they should come down. And there's some bumper stickers from a presidential election 18 years ago I'm tired of looking at. So. But, it's all part of what you have to do, be interviewed by the paper, that sort of thing. And you have to raise the money to pay for all that yourself, and then report it accurately to the state, what you've done.